Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In today's video we're going to be talking about the 3 stages of Smash Ultimate. Which of them are the most important? That is going to be disadvantage, advantage state, and neutral, starting off with neutral. Now neutral is where you're going to be playing a majority of the game. At least you should be playing a majority of the game if the matchup is even. If one of you is getting rocked, then it's going to be disadvantage, advantage obviously. But neutral is very, very important. If you don't have a good neutral, it's going to be really, really hard to win against someone. And I think a big part about neutral is understanding your opponent's burst range, what your opponent wants to do, and what you want to do to punish them. So I think a great character to exemplify this is Diddy Kong. Diddy Kong's neutral is really, really strong because his burst range is massive because of Monkey Flip as well as Banana Throw, which is a little bit easier to react to than Monkey Flip. Monkey Flip is so tough because sometimes it's a command grab, sometimes it's a hitbox, as well as it just being very, very quick. So Diddy Kong's burst range is now insanely big, and this is why he's good versus so many sword characters, because sword characters usually their burst range is bigger than yours, so they can kind of just bait and punish you really, really easily. But Diddy Kong can do this to sword characters perfectly, maybe even the best out of any character in the game. He rocks swords because of this specific reason, as well as a couple other things, I'm sure, but that is going to be your main one. So understanding your opponent's burst range is crucial because this also allows you to undershoot and overshoot better. This is just like if your opponent's going to run away from you, you overshoot. Same thing if they're running towards you, you undershoot. Just that kind of basic stuff. I also think something that's really important is grabbing. Grabbing in neutral, you'll notice most of the players that are really, really good at this game, one of the reasons they're so good is because their grabs are on point. I think Light is probably the best player in the world at grabbing, and it's ironic because he does it with a character like Fox, and that's maybe one of the reasons as well, because Fox has probably the best tomahawk in the game because his fastball is so good. But he's grabbing you a lot because you are scared to be against his aerials, because, you know, Fox aerials are really, really scary. And when you grab someone, even as Fox, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal, right? You're just grabbing someone, it's like, okay, you don't have any true combos off it, they aren't that strong, you're not going to kill. But when you get a grab, you now have advantage state, which allows you to have so much more. It can set you up for a combo, it can set you up for a kill. Grabbing can be so crucial, as well as grabbing for a lot of characters, just leading to a kill, leading to combos, all that kind of good stuff. So like knowing when to grab and like when is like a smart time to do it, not running grabbing a lot as well, because a running grab can be very, very risky. A pivot grab is usually going to be your better option, or just like a standing grab right before you go to grab. You stop running and you grab, because then it's not as laggy. It is still pretty laggy, and you'll probably still get punished, but at least now there is a chance. I think grabbing can be super crucial. And there's also the problem of understanding what your opponent wants to do in neutral. Now, we already talked about burst range, and that's going to be important. But let's say I'm playing against, I don't know, let's say Little Mac. Little Mac, it's like, okay, what does he want from me? Because he's not going to be coming at me in the air. He's probably going to be either opening up with a dash attack or a F tilt or maybe even a smash attack. So now you're aware, okay, these are the moves that he wants to hit. How can I avoid those? The obvious answer, I'll just go to the platform. And a lot of time, that's going to work. Little Mac is a great example because he has a very strong neutral game plan, but well, not very strong, but he has a clear neutral game plan, and there's a clear way to avoid it, and he's a great example. If you want to practice getting your neutral better, I would just play the game more and more. But I think a really good way is just to play against these characters with the set neutral, so you can start thinking the mindset of, okay, this is what I need to look out for. These are the ranges I need to look out for it in, and these are the times that I have to avoid it. Here's how I whiff punish. Here's when I can't punish it at all. Sometimes you have to suck it up and not go for the kill, because a lot of times in Ultimate, the move is just say Palatine or forward air. You're not going to be able to punish that a lot of times. Sometimes you have to tank that on your shield and just reset neutral. It's not the end of the world. Knowing when to overcommit and undercommit can be very, very important. Sorry my mic cut, but the TLDR of it is neutral is very, very hard, and great ways to practice neutral are going to be being aware of what your opponent wants, being aware of your opponent's burst range, and the final topic that I want to talk about is going to be being aware of what opponents do in certain interactions. I think the perfect way to learn this is, one, again, playstyle, but watch just as Mars or Spargo said. You'll see they'll have the same interactions 5 times in one game, 5 times in one stock. It'll just happen over and over and over again, and maybe by the third time, the first 2 times they'll let it slide, they're getting info. The third, fourth, fifth time they explode you for it. Let's say I go for a forward air on your shield, and every single time you up smash me immediately. Let's say this time I go for an undershoot forward air, you up smash, and then I go for a punish. Those kind of things, just repeating interactions over and over again, and starting to understand what your opponent wants. Are they going to shield more? Are they going to spot dodge more? Maybe they jump out of it every time. I think that can be very, very important, and it gives you this massive advantage when you are aware of what your opponent wants, and your opponent just understands, I'm being pressured and I want to get out. That's something that can be important. Neutral is very, very hard to understand, and at the end of the day, it's really, really specific to your character, because some options are really good in neutral for certain characters, some options are really bad. Sometimes you can spam, sometimes you can't, so it's a lot of character stuff, but those are just some general tips that can help you out. Also, really quickly, just something I forgot to mention is how important center stage is. Center stage in this game is crucial just because it allows you to have more safe pressure. If I am on the ledge and you have the entire stage behind you, you can whiff punish me expertly. You can play perfectly out of my burst range. If I am you, I cannot overcommit. The only thing I can do, if you're trying to come at me, I can't just run away from you because there's nothing for me to run to, which is very, very bad. So center stage is something that's very important as well. If you can keep that, I would try to. There's another thing to keep in mind. Next up is going to be disadvantage. Now, disadvantage is a little bit trickier to cover than neutral because every character in the game has a burst range. Every character in the game wants center stage. Every character in the game is fishing for certain options. Now, for disadvantage, not every character has like a side B that can maybe get them off stage towards the ledge. Not every character has a really good fast fall air dodge. Not every character has lingering hitboxes they can throw. So it's a little bit more difficult to just tackle in a broad sense, but the general idea of it is keeping your jump is crucial. When you lose your jump, you lose so much space control because if I have a jump, I can jump backwards, I can jump forward, I can jump straight up, I can jump and then immediately fast fall down. There's a lot of things that I can do. When I don't have a jump, all you have is that drift, and most characters' drift isn't good enough. If your name isn't like Wario or Jigglypuff, you're probably not going to be able to drift safely away from like every massive hitbox if you don't have your jump, and a lot of your things can be covered, and that's why sword characters are so great, because the second that they clip your jump, they can cover essentially every single option except the air dodge, and a lot of the time, if they air dodge, you can just punish it on the ground as well. You can bait the air dodge sometimes as well. So keeping your jump is absolutely crucial. Then you get to the ledge and it gets a little bit trickier. There's some characters that just don't have to worry about the ledge at all. You have Meta Knight, you have Zero Suit, you have the Rats. They kind of just say, oh, if I want center stage, I can get it, as well as having access to all the options all the other characters have. I'd say the best option off the ledge is probably going to be jump. I think jump is just so good because you can't really react to it, and then again, you have option or rather access to all of your options. You can jump back, you can jump forward, you can jump up, you can just do an up B immediately, you can do an aerial immediately, you can air dodge. There's so many things you can do. You could also argue this about neutral getup, but I would prefer jump in a lot of scenarios because I feel like a lot of time in neutral getup, people get really scared. They'll neutral getup and they will immediately shield, and a lot of time that is not what you want to do because then the opponent can just get a grab. Now, sometimes it's going to be like they're going for a 2-frame, so it's not really that bad. They're going for a smash attack. If you are ledge trapping someone, actually, I'll talk about this when I talk more about advantage state. But in general, with disadvantage, you want to be aware of what your opponent can do to kill you, what their combo starters are, because those are probably going to be moves that they want. If all of their combo starters are tilts, then you probably aren't going to be wanting to just neutral get up or roll into them because you can get exploded, at least at a lower percent. Now, if you're at a super high percent and most of their options that are going to kill you are aerials, maybe you don't want to jump off the ledge. Just being aware of what your opponent has to kill you, how to kill you, and all that kind of stuff is very important. Again, I wish I could do better severance of just explaining how to deal with disadvantage, but a lot of characters, it is very subjective of what you have. But for the most part, I think being aggressive when you're coming down is a good mix-up, but as a mix-up, this should not be your main option because sometimes when you just drift away, you can get punished for it. When you come down with an aerial every single time, you are going to get exploded for it, especially, and this is a big thing, at least for like a lot of like lower level players, is going to be stall and fall downers. Do not do these, not ever, of course, but a lot of the time it is just the wrong option because if you miss it, you are going to explode. The risk reward really is there. I think the perfect time to use the stall and fall downer is when your opponent is going to overcommit. I think a lot of the time people kind of overshoot how big, like how fast you're going to go. Like I think mixing up your fast fall speed with these characters as well is very important. Bowser, perfect example. I think Bowser has probably one of the best stall and fall downers in the game because it is so threatening, but when he does it, he pops up really high. So if you see someone, they're coming up you, they're going to hit you with an up like a hitbox, then you can do that up air, it barely moils the hitbox, and then you get the downer, and a lot of time it can be baited, but then you're going to probably get to the ground for them. You might be able to get your shield up. You just need to know when to use a stall and fall. Don't be greedy with it. Don't just be spamming on everyone's shield the second you come down because you're going to get exploded a lot. A lot of time in disadvantage, you're going to have to give up center stage, but that is okay just because like center stage is definitely an advantage to have, but it's not the end of the world. You don't have it, especially with a lot of characters like projectiles and that kind of stuff. It is more important that you get your feet on the ground than you getting the hit and then getting a reversal because a lot of time that just isn't going to happen. Again, sorry, I kind of have to generalize disadvantage way more than neutral, but that's the general gist of it. And the final state, and in my opinion, the most important one is going to be advantage state. Now, I've already talked about a lot of the topics I already wanted to cover in the other two with disadvantage and neutral, but it's going to be kind of the same thing. Understanding your opponent's burst range, when you were juggling them, what are they going to come down with? Do they have a stall and fall? How can you bait that out? Do they have a fast fall air dodge that's really strong? How can you meet them on the ground and still pressure them in the air? Do they have like something that's really good to get away, like Pikachu? Is there a way to cover that? Sometimes there's not, and that's okay. You just don't need to overcommit. A lot of people are going to be overcommitting, burning their double jumps in neutral, and burning your double jumps, or at least advantage state, it is okay. Like, if you can apply the pressure, it is fine. Sometimes it is not fine. If your opponent can get under you, if they fastfall air dodge right through you and you double jump really, really high, and now you're getting punished, that is obviously a mistake that you cannot really afford to make against a lot of people, because advantage state, they will just absolutely blow you up. I think something else that's really important is understanding the angle to attack from. You can't just like juggle someone straight up. Let's say I'm playing against a character like Game & Watch. Game & Watch, you don't really want to juggle him from just like straight below. I mean, juggling Game & Watch in general, it's just really hard, so maybe a bad example. But it's because of Key. Key is really, really scary to play against. So for the most part, you're going to want to be juggling Game & Watch from like below him, obviously, but to the side as well, because the Key hitbox isn't as big on the side. So maybe you can clip him with another up air. Again, in my mind, when I'm thinking of juggling, I'm thinking of characters with swords, because sword characters juggling is really good, and they can cover a lot of space. If you want to practice juggling, I would recommend doing it with a sword character, because that's kind of just like why sword characters are good, just tracking people in the air, and then being aware of like, okay, when is it air dodging? When is it like an attack that's coming down? That's kind of like the thing I talked about with Mars and Spargo, just repeating interactions a lot of the time. I think that could be something that's very important in the juggle. Now, for the ledge trapping, it's also something that you have to be aware of. Again, what does my opponent have access to? And I also really, really need to emphasize this. Don't commit to something before your opponent is off the ledge. I feel like a lot of the time, your opponent's just going to be sitting there, and then they'll go for like a back hit. They'll go for like an F smash read. They'll go for an up smash, all this kind of stuff. And then the opponent just kind of sits there, and they'll roll through you. It's just, they get advantage for free. They get center stage for free, all that kind of stuff. You can just wait, because your opponent, when they are on the ledge, has access, or they don't have as many access to. You have all of the stage behind you. You are the one applying the pressure simply by staying there. You do not need to pick an option. I think that's why people are kind of not bad versus Sephiroth, not great versus Sephiroth, because Sephiroth is just out there a really, really long time to ledge, and people get panicky. They're like, I want to hit Sephiroth now. He shouldn't be out here for this long. Here's my punish window. He has to come to you. He has to either neutral get up, he has to jump, he has to roll. He has to pick one of those 4 options to get back to center stage. He can't be out there forever. Even if he feels like it, he has to come back eventually, and that is when you win. When you make the mistake, do not let your opponent get in your head just because they're on the ledge for a long time. You don't have to commit to anything. You can let your opponent come to you, because you're the one that is forcing the advantage state. Don't get greedy. Just play calm. Play with your nerves, and you will be absolutely fine. In the ledge trapping, again, certain characters are going to have easier ledge trapping than others because they're going to have bigger hitboxes. Sometimes you're not going to be able to cover every option. There's certain characters that can cover every single option just by standing in certain ranges. Some characters can't cover every single one. This is kind of the thing I talked about with Mars earlier. Mars and Spargo, I keep bringing them up. It's just a great example because they're so good at this. If your opponent's jumping a lot off the ledge, maybe position yourself for a jump. If your opponent's rolling a lot, position yourself for a roll. If your opponent's like get up attacking, all that kind of stuff, if they're get up attacking, or whether they're getting up and they're shielding every time, you can recognize that. Maybe when they get up, you roll behind them so you can get a grab, you can back throw them. All these kind of things can be very important. And I would say again that advantage state is the most important, but not because of all the reasons I talked about, but just because the on hit of ultimate is so strong. And this is how a lot of players are going to get an upset. Now, Steve, perfect example of this. Kazuya, perfect example of this. Their neutral and disadvantage is okay. Well, I mean, Steve's disadvantage is broken. His neutral is broken. His advantage state is crazy. Kazuya's disadvantage is awful. His neutral, awful. His advantage state, probably the best in the game because he hits you and you die. It doesn't matter if you are MKLeo. It doesn't matter if you are me. It doesn't matter if you are a level 1 computer. You will explode the exact same way, which is why it is really, really important to have a very good advantage state, because that's going to be your way to get these big upsets, to get your gimmicks. If you can hit your opponent harder than they are hitting you, even if they're winning neutral more, a lot of time you're going to be at a big advantage, which is just something important to consider. And I thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope this video was helpful to you. If it wasn't helpful to you, leave something down below that'll be helpful to me, so when the next time I make one of these videos, it can be a little bit better. The main takeaway from this is probably going to be that advantage state is really important, disadvantage is really important, neutral is really important, and the main things you need to look out for them are: what does your opponent want? You need to be thinking about these things. What is my opponent's combo starter? What is my opponent's kill move? What is my opponent's like moves that I don't really need to worry about as much? Something that maybe you can write off the table. All those things are important, as well as understanding your opponent's burst range. When you understand your opponent's burst range, you know when you're in danger, when you can play a little risky, when your opponent might play a little risky, all those kind of things. Ultimate is such an intricate game, and a lot of the time your character is going to be influencing your decisions a lot because your character has access to certain things, all that kind of stuff. Again, I'd play the game a lot. The more you play, the better you're going to get, but I'd keep those things in mind, and I think you'll start to see progress right away, and I thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Again, if you have any advice that you think is important that I left out, please leave it down below so people can get better. That's the point of this video. It's just for people to get better so I can get better, so the community as a whole can get better. Everyone can learn from everyone. Nobody is perfect. And yeah, Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Sports been absolutely really. Sorry the video's a little bit rambly, but I just kind of really want to cover this topic because it's something that's so interesting to me, and I want to see how people think about the game because I know the way I think about the game isn't correct. Other people have different values that are important. But before I ramble anymore, because you just watched the 10 minutes of that, thank you guys for everything, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye bye.